Discovered, the incredible journey of a billionaire who overcame loss to find touching love again. Michael stood at the window of his sprawling home, the cityscape of Chicago stretching out before him like a canvas of dreams now tainted by grief. Just a year prior, laughter bounced off these walls, a symphony of joy, warmth, and family. Now, silence filled the air and the weight of loss was palpable. Love came so easily when Rebecca was alive, but now every word with his two teenage children, Nick and Sarah, felt like an uphill battle. The void she left behind was a chasm, insatiable and haunting. He threw himself into his work, thinking that if he poured his heart into making money, maybe he could buy his family's happiness back. His office was a fortress of success, papers stacked like accolades, but every time he opened his mouth to share good news, all he received were cold stares in return. His attempts at gifts, an expensive car for Nick and a designer handbag for Sarah, fell flat, each gesture a misfire that sparked more resentment than gratitude. They felt abandoned, and he felt helpless, a billionaire with no way to mend what was broken. Their suburb buzzed with life outside. A block party was in full swing, laughter spilling over backyards, the smell of grilled burgers drifting through the air. Michael found himself staring out at the neighbors who thrived with small acts of kindness, sharing in sorrows and joys without the weight of wealth. In contrast, his family life felt hollow. He organized a lavish family reunion, hoping to bridge the emotional chasms, but the day spiraled into chaos, culminating in hurtful words and tears. As he watched it all fall apart, he felt more isolated than ever. Then came Tom, the war veteran who ran a small corner shop that had withstood gentrification until it couldn't. Their paths crossed serendipitously in the nearby park. Tom was humble, forged by struggles that made his heart resilient. Listening to his stories of perseverance stirred something dormant inside Michael, a flicker of understanding that maybe wealth was not the answer after all. Emotions surfaced, fear and shame merging with the realization that the pursuit of riches could never fill the hole left by Rebecca. On the eve of that fateful reunion, Michael encountered Julie. She volunteered with families in crisis and had a warmth that pulled him in. Over coffee, her wisdom flooded him with clarity. Love required vulnerability, it was not a trophy displayed on a shelf. As she spoke, he could see Nick and Sarah anew, clear reflections of their mother. Underneath their anger lay sorrow and longing that mirrored his own. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the evening unfolded, Michael battled inner turmoil. Should he cling to the safety his wealth afforded him, or risk it all for the possibility of real connection? The thought of reaching out to Nick and Sarah sent shivers down his spine. A fragile thread connected them, one that could snap at any moment, and as he considered the sacrifices he'd have to make, his heart raced with urgency. He stood on the brink of a decision. Could he finally confront the ghosts of his past and ignite the love that had once flourished so beautifully? Michael took a deep breath and stood firm, his resolve starting to take shape. The familiar weight of uncertainty pressed on him, but something felt different tonight. He could see the glimmer of hope in Julie's eyes from their conversation, a reminder that love was not lost but merely buried under layers of sorrow and regret. Maybe it was time to reach out to Nick and Sarah, to take that leap into vulnerability, the risk that love often demands. He grabbed his phone. With shaky hands, he typed out a message, then erased it before the send button could be pressed. His heart lunged as he thought of Sarah's derisive reactions to his last attempts to connect. What if they shut him out again? Anxiety churned in his stomach. But he could feel in his bones that Julie was right. Love required effort, and Michael was finally ready to put in the work. He decided to take a more personal approach. Grabbing his car keys, he made his way out into the night, the crisp autumn air revitalizing his spirit. The block party that had drawn families together still pulsed with vibrancy, laughter twinkling in the air like distant stars. Each sound echoed in his heart, a longing for the closeness he used to know. Michael drove toward the local diner, a place where he shared countless meals with Rebecca and their children. The memories flooded back. Sarah with her bangs clipped to the side, her laughter rising above the clinking of silverware. Nick, forever rolling his eyes at his sister's antics, but secretly protective of her. He longed for that warmth again, the familial bond that now seemed so distant. Upon entering the diner, he spotted Nick at their usual booth. His son sat alone, staring at the menu without making a choice. Michael hesitated for a moment, his heart racing harder than before. But he pressed on, crossing the floor and sliding into the booth across from Nick. "Hey, bud," he said, trying to mask the quiver in his voice. Nick glanced up, surprise etched across his features, followed quickly by the familiar shield of anger. "What do you want, Dad?" Michael's heart sank, but he pushed through the hurt. "I just thought maybe we could talk. You know, about everything." Nick shot him an incredulous look. "About what, Dad? The fact that you threw money at us and thought it would fix things?" Michael leaned in closer, his voice cracking slightly. "I know I messed up. And I'm sorry. I thought making things better meant providing for you too. But I see now that I was wrong. What do you want, Nick? How can I help?" There was a long silence, each second stretching painfully as Nick's expression wavered between fury and sadness. Finally, he spoke, words barely above a whisper, "I want Mom back." The ache that had been building in Michael's chest shattered at Nick's admission. It echoed his own deepest desire, a wish that had faded into unspoken despair. He felt his throat tighten, tears pooling at the corners of his eyes. "Me too," he said, raw honesty dripping from each word. Just then, Sarah entered, glancing around before her eyes settled on their booth. She looked weary, almost fragile. The tension felt electric, alarming him as he realized he was on the brink of a wholly new moment. Could this be their chance to reconnect, to face their shared grief together? "Sarah," he called softly, gesturing for her to join them. To his surprise, she didn't turn away, she stood rooted in place as uncertainty flashed across her face. As she approached, Michael felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. An ember of love and connection that he had neglected for too long. As she slid into the booth, he could hear his heart pounding. Had he finally dared to take the first step towards healing, or would it crumble again under the weight of hurt? Can we talk?" he asked, feeling time hang heavily in the air. With a glance exchanged between the siblings that spoke volumes, the three of them sat together, the shadows of loss looming, but for the first time, there was the faintest hint of light. In that moment of silence, a fragile truth surfaced, while grief had shattered them, it was love, their love, imperfect yet bound by memory, granting them a sliver of hope. What if this was the beginning of a new chapter? Would they embrace this journey together, or would fear dismantle the bridge Michael had just begun to rebuild? Michael felt the weight of the moment pressing heavily on his chest. Silence enveloped them, only broken by the small sounds of the diner, the clattering of dishes, hushed conversations, and the distant hum of an old jukebox. Each sound felt amplified, drawing him deeper into the reality of sitting with his children after so long. Nick fidgeted, his eyes darting between Michael and Sarah, the tension palpable. Michael found himself studying Sarah's face. She had the same delicate features as her mother, but her eyes were a mirror to the turmoil inside. He felt that familiar tightening in his throat. "Sarah," he began, his voice steady but soft, "I know things between us have been hard. I'm not here to make excuses anymore. I want to listen. How have you been?" Sarah hesitated, glancing toward Nick as if seeking support. He met her gaze, a flicker of understanding flashing between them. Then, she took a deep breath. It's been overwhelming, Dad. School and everything else, it just feels heavy. Like nobody understands. Michael nodded. I didn't know. I can't imagine how lonely that must have felt. As she spoke, he couldn't help but think of how much loss had stolen from them. He felt the sadness creeping in again, but he pushed it away, focusing instead on what mattered, reconnection. They keep saying time heals all wounds, Nick added, voice barely above a whisper, but it doesn't feel that way. It just hurts. And you not being there only made it worse. Michael's heart sank. He had done this to them. He hadn't just lost Rebecca, he had lost his children too, lost their faith in him. I'm so sorry for that. I've learned so much through all of this. I thought I was protecting you by giving you space, but I see that I was wrong. He looked at his son, watching as the hurt flickered in his eyes. I don't want to just be somebody you see in passing, someone who is just a ride in a car or a face in a crowded room. I want to be your dad again. I want to be there. For both of you. Nick's expression softened momentarily, revealing a sadness that he didn't quite know how to express. Then what do we do now? He asked quietly. Michael took a deep breath, letting the warmth of their presence fill him. We take it one step at a time. We can start by making time for each other again. No distractions. Just us. How about we start with dinner every week here? Without phones. Just us talking? Sarah's gaze shifted to her brother, her expression questioning but hopeful. After a moment, Nick nodded slowly, a reluctant but genuine gesture of agreement. Okay, he said. I could try that. The hint of a smile crept onto Sarah's face. I can handle that too. In that instant, the air felt lighter. Maybe this was the bridge they were building together. It felt tentative but promising. Michael's heart swelled. It wasn't a perfect solution, but they were moving forward. Thank you, Michael replied, emotion thick in his voice. I really appreciate it. As they settled into a quieter moment, something shifted in the diner. Laughter erupted from a nearby table, and Michael couldn't deny the feeling of warmth enveloping them. Then Sarah's voice broke the silence again. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course, he replied, curiosity lighting up his heart. Do you think Mom would be proud of us trying to work through this? I mean, looking at how things used to be. At the mention of Rebecca, a pang of grief sliced through him. The memories were sharp, but there was something different now. They were mixed with resolve, the desire to honor what they had lost by embracing the life in front of them. I think she would be proud, Michael said slowly, feeling the weight of his words. And I believe she would want us to keep moving forward. In that heavy moment, filled with unspoken feelings, he could sense that the dawn of healing was near. They were all together now, maybe not entirely whole yet, but stepping out of the shadows into something like light. But just as hope began to solidify, Michael's phone buzzed in his pocket, shattering the fragile serenity of the moment. He pulled it out and looked at the screen, and it froze him. A message, a name that tugged at his heart, someone from his past he thought he'd left behind. In that split second, the heavy weight of his past loomed even larger before him. As Sarah leaned closer, curiosity bubbling in her eyes, he realized their journey was far from over. What secrets did this message hold, and how would it ripple through the fragile peace they had just begun to build? Michael's heart raced as he stared at the glowing screen. The name sent a chill through him, like a sudden gust of wind that cuts right through the armor he'd been trying to build around his heart. It was Laura. His first love. A woman he thought he'd closed the chapter on years ago. Dad, what is it? Sarah asked, her voice low, eyes narrowing in concern. He could feel Nick's gaze weighing heavily on him, both of them anticipating his answer. Michael gulped, fighting the urge to bury the phone back into his pocket. This wasn't just an old flame, this was a reminder of who he had been and the life he once lived. It's just a message, he managed to say, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. Someone from my past. Nick leaned in, the tension shifting towards curiosity. What do they want? Michael struggled for the right words. How could he explain this? How could he compete with the ghosts of his past when he was still wrestling with the present? I'm not sure, he finally whispered. In reality, he feared the implications. The last thing he wanted to do was disrupt this fragile truce they had just begun to navigate. Everyone around them seemed to fade. The laughter from the table nearby felt distant, muffled. Sarah's hand reached for his, her smaller fingers wrapping around his. The gesture was innocent yet filled with meaning, anchoring him in the reality of now. Whatever it is, Dad, Nick said, his voice steady, you don't have to handle it alone. We're a team, remember? Michael looked at his children, their faces a mix of concern and encouragement. It would be easy to hold the weight of this revelation to himself, to shut them out once again. But maybe this was precisely what they needed, a test of trust, a step towards real connection. Taking a deep breath, he turned his gaze back to the phone. With trembling fingers, he hit open and read the message. It was simple, just a question, are you okay? But it carried more weight than he anticipated. Something inside him stirred, bitterness and warmth colliding like a storm. He had always equated Laura with the past, yet remembering the way she knew him, the joy they used to share made his heart ache. What did she say? Sarah asked, squeezing his hand tighter. It's complicated. It's a question about my well-being. He paused, deciding whether to let them in deeper. Someone I cared about is checking in on me. Nick's brow furrowed. Why now? After everything? Michael sighed, lost in thought. The diner was filled with the sense of coffee and pancakes, yet his mind was miles away. I guess people sometimes push through the past. They reach out when they know you're struggling, he said, trying to keep things vague. Maybe she's worried. He noticed the concern etched on Nick's face, the desire for stability in his expressions. Today had been a step forward. Did he want to risk it all by bringing up more? Suddenly, Sarah spoke again, eyes bright. What if she wants to meet up? What would you do then? The thought sent a jolt through him. Meeting was one thing, but seeing her after all these years? I don't know, Sarah. There's so much at stake, he replied quietly. But deep down, he wondered if facing Laura could somehow allow him to confront his past and the sadness he still held. So, do you think you'll respond? Nick asked, his voice cutting through the weight of silence. I think I have to, Michael finally admitted. Like a dam breaking, the reality of impending choices washed over him. Would he open old wounds, or could this be a chance to heal? They were stepping into uncharted territory, not just as a family but as individuals. As Michael typed out a response, a sense of uncertainty lurked beneath the thrill of possibility. His heart raced with both fear and excitement. What ripples would this send through their lives? In trying to reconnect with someone from his past, could he also find his way back to being the father they needed? He hit send, and as soon as it was gone, a nagging question echoed in his mind. What would tomorrow bring? And could their family withstand the forces they were about to unleash? The next day, Michael woke up to a relentless buzz in his pocket. At first, he tried to ignore it, telling himself it was just another day filled with the grind of routines. But the weight of yesterday lingered, pressing against his chest. He stumbled out of bed and fished out his phone, the screen lighting up with yet another message from Laura. His heart raced as he read it. I hope you don't mind me reaching out. Just wanted to check how you're doing. It was simple and sincere, yet it felt like a door had swung open, exposing the fresh air of possibility and underlying tension. Dad, you okay? Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts as she poked her head into his room, fresh from her morning shower. Yeah, I'm good, he replied, forcing a smile. But he could see the flicker of concern still lingering in her eyes. Is it about her? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's just we talked yesterday, and she's checking in on me again. Her brow furrowed, processing the weight of the words. So, what's next? Before he could reply, Nick joined them, hair still a mess from sleep, and immediately picked up on the change in atmosphere. Is it Laura? He asked bluntly, cringing slightly at his own directness, though lacking any semblance of a filter. Michael felt a rush of heat rise to his cheeks. I don't know yet, he admitted. The truth was, he hadn't even figured out if he wanted to meet her, let alone revisit the past that had shaped him. There was a part of him that was afraid he might not just face his former self, but also the unresolved feelings that came along with it. Nick moved sideways, sinking into the chair across from him, studying him closely. Whatever you decide, remember that we're here. You don't have to do this alone, right? Michael nodded, feeling the weight of his son's words. Nick was right. His family stood by him, they were resilient. But even with this support, the thought of opening a door he thought had been closed frightened him. I'll respond, he finally said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. In the fleeting moments that followed, they shared a breakfast of scrambled eggs and toast, the conversation flowing naturally from school projects to weekend plans. But underneath the surface, Michael sensed the unvoiced tension. The uncertainty surrounding Laura lingered in the air like a ghost, a reminder that life can take unexpected twists and turns. That afternoon, with a sense of resignation, Michael found himself typing a reply. This time, he kept it light. Thanks for checking in. I'm okay. As he hit send, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was the calm before the storm. Would she answer back? Would she suggest a meeting? And if that happened, would he be prepared for a confrontation with his past? He left the kitchen and wandered into the living room, where Sarah was engrossed in a book and Nick was working on his homework. The mundane sights of family life felt comforting, yet the reality was that a fractured piece of his past was knocking at the door again. A ping from his phone yanked him back to reality. Laura had replied almost instantly, good to hear. I'd love to catch up sometime. How do you feel about that? His heart dropped an emotional whiplash he didn't see coming. The familiarity of her words hit him hard. He needed to think, to make sense of the emotions bubbling up inside him. Yet, at the same time, he was aware of the pivotal moment unfolding in his life. Could this be an opportunity to move forward, to heal? Or would it bring everything crashing back down? As questions swirled in his mind, a sense of inevitability washed over him. He looked at his children, feeling a deep sense of love for them mixed with fear of what might unfold. He began typing again, his heart racing, and yet an unexpected determination rising within him. Would he step into this new chapter, no matter how daunting it felt? What might he discover about himself and about Laura if he took that leap? Michael stared at the blinking cursor on his screen, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. Each flash felt like a heartbeat, quickening his pulse. He could almost hear his kids' laughter in the background, a loving reminder of what his life was now, a stark contrast to the past that Laura represented. He took a deep breath, remembering the last time they had met, the arguments, the silence that followed. It was as if their relationship had fractured and lingered in the atmosphere, cemented in the corners of his memory. But there was no denying how much he missed the connection they once shared. With a shaky finger, he typed, "Let us meet. I'm curious about everything." He hit send and felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with dread. And just like that, he had opened the door wider, letting in the possibility of what was to come. He tried to swallow the lump in his throat as he turned to look at Sarah and Nick, each wrapped up in their own world. He wondered if they could sense his internal storm. "Dad, are you okay?" Sarah asked, peering over her book, her eyes keen and perceptive. "You seem a bit off." "Yeah, just thinking about work," he stammered, knowing that wasn't true but not ready to share any deeper truths. Nick shrugged, dismissing it for now. "You should relax. Maybe a movie night later?" Definitely, Michael responded with forced enthusiasm. The thought of laughter, maybe even a shared bowl of popcorn, was a welcome distraction from his musings. The clock on the wall ticked slowly, each tick echoing louder as anticipation swelled in his chest. What would happen if he met Laura? Did he have the strength to face the past without losing sight of the good he had in front of him now? At that moment, his phone pinged again. Laura had responded. Great. How about this Friday? There's a cafe we used to love. His heart raced. Friday felt too soon. What if he was unprepared? Yet, there was something in her suggestion that felt familiar and comforting, like wrapping himself in an old favorite sweater. Yeah, Friday works, he typed quickly. He put the phone down, feeling the weight of the decision settling in. The truth was, fear and excitement danced in his stomach, a constant pulse of hope against the backdrop of memories that threatened to overwhelm him. Dad, can we take a break and see if it's nice outside? Sarah's voice cut through his thoughts again, and he nodded absent-mindedly, the idea of fresh air bringing some respite. They moved outside, the world bursting with blooming colors of spring. The warmth of the sun was comforting, and laughter bubbled up between them. Nick cracked jokes, and Sarah rolled her eyes lovingly at every punchline, their bond palpable and sweet. Yet, all the while, Michael's mind wandered back to Friday. Could he really face Laura while feeling so tethered to the memories they'd both tried to bury? As they wrapped up their day, he decided to share his plans with Sarah and Nick. The moment they gathered around the dinner table, he took a deep breath. I might be meeting with Laura this Friday. A silence blanketed the room, the clink of forks suddenly muted. What? Sarah exclaimed, her eyes wide. Are you serious? Yeah. She reached out, and I thought maybe it's time, Michael responded, his heart fluttering anxiously. Nick seemed thoughtful, his brows knitting together in concentration. What if it's weird? He asked bluntly. It might be, Michael admitted. But it also might be a chance to clear up some things. Just be careful, Dad, Sarah said softly. You deserve to be happy. Those words struck Michael deeper than he expected. He looked at his children, their faces filled with concern and love. Thanks, kids. I will. He held on to that small spark of hope growing within him, unsure where this journey would take him, but knowing he couldn't face it alone. As the dinner wound down and all the dishes were cleared, he felt that spark flicker. With Friday edging closer, he couldn't help but wonder what it would feel like to see the woman from his past again. But would this be a reunion of closure, or the beginning of something unexpected? A sudden longing filled his thoughts just as Sarah posed another question. What if she's changed a lot? In that moment, Michael realized he wasn't the only one with a lot to lose. What if Friday didn't just hold a chance for him to rediscover parts of Laura, but also a chance for her to meet the new Michael? With thoughts racing, he considered the transformation that awaited them both and what truths might emerge from their encounter. Would they find forgiveness in each other's eyes? Or was it too late for healing? Michael woke up on Friday with a knot in his stomach. The sun spilled through the curtains, brightening the room as if it were mocking his anxiety. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the cafe where he was about to meet Laura. Memories of happier times slid through his mind, mingled with moments of pain. He got up and moved through his morning routine on autopilot. The coffee brewed, the toast popped, and outside, Sarah and Nick called for breakfast. Dad! Come on, we've got a full day ahead. Sarah's voice had an infectious energy, and he was grateful for it. He needed their joy to distract him from the weight of the looming meeting. As they sat at the table, laughter echoed with every joke Nick tossed in. For a brief moment, Michael felt the warmth of normalcy, but then, like a wave crashing down, the reality of the day returned. Are you nervous about today? Sarah asked, slicing through the bright atmosphere with earnestness. Michael looked at her, the way her brow furrowed in concern. A little, he admitted, the truth spilling out as easily as the orange juice he was pouring. But I have to do this. It's time. Nick frowned. What if it's a total disaster? You two were pretty intense back then. Michael chuckled softly. Well, memory can be a tricky thing. We might just surprise ourselves. He hoped he sounded more confident than he felt. After breakfast, he took a long shower to calm his nerves. The warm water was a temporary escape. As he lathered the shampoo in, he let his mind drift to Laura's face. They hadn't seen each other in years, and he wondered how time had treated her. Had she changed? Did he still recognize her? When he finally stepped out, the clock mocked him. Time was slipping away. He dressed carefully, choosing a simple shirt but hoping it conveyed a sense of purpose. He glanced in the mirror, searching for courage in his own reflection. As he drove to the cafe, familiar streets zipped past, a blend of nostalgia and anxiety. Each block was like peeling a layer of history that he thought he had left behind. It wasn't long before the quaint cafe came into view. Outside tables were lit with flowers, where laughter seemed to float on the breeze. He parked, his heart pounding as he walked towards the entrance. The air buzzed with chatter, and Michael felt a flush of heat radiate through him. What if she didn't show? What if this turned out to be a mistake? He took a deep breath, feeling the sunlight warm his face. He stepped inside and glimpsed the familiar decor: framed photos, cozy nooks, and the smell of freshly baked pastries. And then, there she was. Laura sat at a table by the window, her hair falling softly around her shoulders, holding a coffee cup, gazing out as if lost in thought. His heart skipped a beat at the sight of her. She hadn't changed much, yet the years were evident in the way she carried herself: bolder, perhaps, and a little more serene. Michael? She called out softly when she caught sight of him, her voice catching momentarily. Hey Laura. It felt surreal. The air shifted around them, heavy with everything unsaid. As he approached, they both smiled shyly, waiting to break the silence that lingered like an old song they both knew the words to but had forgotten the melody. Thanks for coming, he said, sliding into the seat across from her. Of course, she replied, her eyes searching his. And just like that, the past, the struggles, and all the threads tying them together unfurled like a tapestry. But what would be woven into their story today? Would it be a tale of reconciliation or heartbreak? With their coffee in hand, the conversation felt both thrilling and daunting. Every word spoken felt like peeling back layers of a complicated history. What truth would emerge from this reunion? Michael braced himself, knowing it was time for both of them to confront the past. With each shared memory, the weight of what once was hung between them, but so did the glimmer of possibility for what could be. Would they dare take that leap? He looked into her eyes, searching for the connection they once had, knowing that only time would tell what this moment would mean for both of them. But was healing truly possible? Or were they simply two travelers lost in a maze of memories, still searching for a way out? Silence enveloped them for a moment, thick with unspoken words. Michael's heart raced. This wasn't just a casual meeting, it was a reconnection to a past filled with both joy and turmoil. He took a sip of his coffee, needing the warmth to settle his nerves. So, Laura began, her voice soft yet steady, it's been a while. She folded her hands around her cup as if drawing strength from it. Yeah, almost a decade, he replied, nodding. It feels like yesterday, but also like a lifetime. Laura looked away for a moment, her gaze drifting to the bustling street outside. People passed by, lost in their own lives, perhaps feeling the same blend of anticipation and fear that Michael felt. I often wonder what would have happened if things had gone differently for us. Would we be sitting here like this? He could see the hint of sadness in her eyes. I think about that too, he confessed. But life took us in different directions. Still, here we are now. Laura nodded slowly, her expression serious. But what do we do about the past? Do we just leave it behind? Michael felt the weight of her question pressing on him. I don't think it's that simple, he said, his voice lowering. There are things that need to be said, things I wish I'd done. Me too, she interrupted, her tone urgent now. I've held on to a lot of regrets. Maybe we owe it to ourselves to face them. His heart tightened. Facing the past felt daunting. Like those phone calls I never made or the letters I couldn't bring myself to send? Exactly, she said, her eyes locking onto his. The intensity of her gaze sent shivers down his spine. Time slowed as he remembered the arguments, the tears, the distance that had grown between them. I was scared, Laura, he admitted. I let fear control my actions. I isolated myself. He paused, taking a deep breath. But I realized that in trying to protect myself, I lost you. Her expression softened, and he could see the flicker of understanding pass between them. I felt lost without you. That confession crashed like a wave. The tenderness behind her words struck him deep. I never wanted that. Neither did I, she said quietly. But it happened. We lost each other and maybe ourselves too. Michael reached across the table, but then hesitated. What if she pulled away? Instead, he planted his hands firmly on the table, staring directly into her eyes. I want to know if there's still a chance for us. The silence that followed was electric. He could feel every heartbeat echoing in the cafe, drowning out the laughter and chatter around them. Laura's gaze flickered over his face, weighing his words. What if it hurts all over again? I can't promise it. He replied, his voice steady. But I can promise to be honest this time. I don't want to run away anymore. She bit her lip, uncertainty dancing behind her eyes. I want to believe that, Michael. But I'm scared. Me too. The admission hung between them, raw and vulnerable. Then, just as Michael thought they could finally take a leap into the unknown, the cafe door jingled open. A young couple strolled in hand, laughing and utterly in love. Michael felt a pang of jealousy mixed with longing. Could they ever return to that blissful simplicity? As Laura turned to watch them, he seized the moment. What if we start with a coffee date once a week? No pressure. Just two people getting to know each other again. She turned back to him, surprise flashed on her face. You think we could do that? I want to try. I want to fight for us. Laura's expression shifted, a flicker of intrigue mixed with hesitation passed over her face. The hope holding them together hung delicately in the air, a chance, a promise, a future yet unwritten. But would she take that chance with him? Or would the past hold them prisoner forever? The atmosphere thickened with possibilities. As Michael searched her face for a sign, he knew something profound hung in the balance. Would she say yes? The cafe buzzed around them, but Michael was lost in the moment, the world narrowing down to just him and Laura. Would this be their new beginning, or a temporary stop on a long, winding road filled with uncertainty? Laura's gaze flickered back to Michael, uncertainty transforming into an inkling of hope. Okay, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Let us try it. One coffee date. A mixture of elation and apprehension swelled within him. Really? You mean it? His heart raced as he searched her face for confirmation, fearing that he had misread the moment. Yeah, she answered, and a tentative smile began to form on her lips. Let us not rush into anything, though. Just take it slow, all right? Slow sounds good. He nodded, a genuine grin spreading across his face. I think I can manage slow. The warmth between them ignited, zipping through the air like electricity. He pictured the coffee shops they could explore, the laughter they could share, and the memories they could rebuild. But reality snapped back as the door jingled again, interrupting their moment. An elderly man shuffled in, and for a second, the ambience shifted from the intimacy of their reunion back to the bustling cafe. Children squealed outside, the aroma of fresh pastries filled the room. Moments ago, it had felt like they were the only two people in the world. "Okay," Laura said as she stirred her coffee, a small smile still lingering. "Let's make a plan. When's our first date? Maybe this weekend?" Michael suggested, feeling more confident now that a decision had been made. The thought of spending actual time with her filled him with excitement. "Sounds good." She took a sip of her coffee, the steam fogging up her glasses briefly before she adjusted them again. But as they talked about the weekend, a shadow crossed her face. "I should warn you, I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. I wouldn't want you to be." He smiled softly. "We've both changed. Life does that." "Sure, but I mean, I have baggage." She looked down, tracing the rim of her cup with her fingertip. "There are things I've had to deal with," things that her voice trailed off as she glanced up, a mix of vulnerability and determination evident in her eyes. "I have baggage too," he said gently. "Let's figure it all out together. I want to know you, all of you." A flicker of hope returned as she met his gaze. "Okay, I'll try. I just hope we can handle the truth." He nodded solemnly. Their conversation had dented this romantic image with real-life struggles they both faced. But what they needed was to share their imperfect stories, to build a new foundation. Suddenly, her phone buzzed on the table, cutting through the optimism. Laura looked down, and his heart sank at the flash of annoyance that crossed her features. He didn't want something to break this moment. "Sorry, I have to take this," she said, glancing at the screen. "It's work." "Of course," he said, though his heart dropped slightly. He picked at the edge of his cup, the bustling cafe suddenly feeling too loud, too sharp in harsh reality. As Laura stepped aside to take the call, he took a moment to reflect. The warmth they shared was a fragile thing, but oh, how beautiful it was. He felt the stir of flames lighting up past memories. Perhaps this was the start. When she returned, her brow was furrowed. "I really need to get going," she said, her voice clipped. "Everything okay?" He sat up, tension curling in his stomach. "Just some work issues I need to sort out. Can we talk later? Text me?" He asked, desperation creeping into his voice as he wished to keep their connection alive just a little longer. "Yeah," she replied, her tone softer. "I'll text you after our first date on Saturday." With that, she stood, hesitating at the edge of the table as if she wanted to say something more. Then she turned and walked toward the door, her silhouette fading into the crowd. His heart ached with a hope mingled with fear. Would they really move forward, or would the tides of responsibility and regret pull them apart once more? Standing under the cafe's muted lights, Michael's mind raced. He wanted to reach out, to hold her hand one last time. Instead, he filled the space with silent promise. Could they find their way back to each other, unravel the past, and stitch together something new? The world buzzed around him. Coffee cups clinked, laughter echoed, and yet he felt isolated in his thoughts. As he got up to leave, he whispered a quiet, "Please let this work." But as he stepped out into the warm afternoon sun, a sinking feeling washed over him again. What if she didn't text him? What if the past was simply too heavy for them to bear? A deep breath filled his lungs. He felt the weight of uncertainty settling over him. Would they truly overcome the scars of the past together? The question hung in the air, as time stretched forward into the unknown. Michael stood in front of the mirror, running a hand through his hair, the morning sunlight pouring through the window. Today was the day. The day he had been counting down to since he had agreed to reconnect with Laura. His heart raced as he thought about their coffee date, a chance to see if the bond could be rekindled. Would they find the love they once had, or had too much time passed? His mind drifted back to the conversations from their last meeting, where vulnerability danced with possibility. It was up to them to shape what the future might look like. With that thought firmly planted, he arrived at the cafe, taking a moment to breathe deeply before walking inside. The cafe was bustling, filled with the hum of laughter and chattering voices. But today, it was just backdrop noise. He needed to focus, shake off the nerves, and be present. As he scanned the room, he spotted Laura sitting at their familiar table, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, a small smile breaking across her face when she caught his eye. "Hey," she greeted, her voice warm yet tinged with apprehension. "Hi," he replied, feeling both exhilarated and nervous. They exchanged pleasantries as he took a seat. Silence hung momentarily as they settled in, but it wasn't the uncomfortable silence he had feared. There was an electric hum, a sense of familiarity. "I've been looking forward to this," Laura said, breaking the ice. "Me too." He leaned forward, wanting to dive deeper into their past while also paving a path towards the future. "So, tell me about your life since everything." She perked up, her eyes reflecting a mix of memories and adventures. "Well, after we split, I took some time to travel. Found myself lost in new places, which felt both liberating and terrifying. I had to learn to love myself without the weight of my past." Her honesty struck a chord deep within him, and he knew this was the start of real conversations, the raw truth. "I've been trying to do that too. Especially after losing Rebecca. Connecting with my kids has taught me a lot about love and vulnerability and how to really listen." Laura's expression softened, understanding flickering behind her eyes. "I'm truly sorry for your loss, Michael. I can't imagine what that must have been like." "Thank you," he replied, feeling comforted by her compassion. "It's been a journey, and not one I could have navigated alone." They exchanged stories of heartbreak and growth, but within that conversation, Michael felt a shift. As Laura spoke about her struggles, he started to see glimpses of the girl he once loved. The same warmth, the same laughter. The more they opened up, the more he could sense pieces of their past knitting together this new fabric of connection. "Do you think if we kept at this, we could actually rebuild something?" Laura asked tentatively. "Or is the past just too big to move past?" Michael looked straight into her eyes, feeling the weight of his words. "The past will always be a part of us, but it doesn't have to define us. We can share our scars and still build a future together. But we need to be open, honest, and willing to face the challenges." The conversation flowed seamlessly, they shared laughter and even some playful jabs. For the first time in a long while, Michael felt light. He was no longer just the grieving billionaire or the distant father. He was simply a man caught in the beauty of possibility. Before they knew it, hours had slipped by. The cafe was now closing, but neither wanted to leave. They stood outside, the sun setting behind them, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. "I never thought I'd feel this comfortable being around you again," Laura admitted, biting her lip, a hint of vulnerability shining through. "It feels easy." "Yeah, it does," Michael said. "I think we're ready to embrace whatever comes next. We've both carried so much individually, but together it could be different." With newfound resolve, they agreed to meet again, tentatively scheduling another coffee date soon. As they parted, Michael's heart soared. He felt the weight of possibility glimmering in front of him. Stepping into his car, he glanced back at the cafe where the past and present had collided, leaving hope in their wake. Entering his home, he was welcomed by the joyful sounds of Nick and Sarah. They were laughing together, playing a game on the living room floor. Michael felt the warmth of connection sparkle in his chest. It was clear he was beginning to rediscover love in more ways than one. As he settled down with them, he realized something profound. Healing comes not just from facing the past, but from embracing the future with open arms. Reconnecting with Laura wasn't just about rekindling an old flame, it was about understanding what love meant in its various forms: familial, romantic, and within oneself. With a radiant smile, Michael thought, today marks the beginning. But this wasn't just about him. It was a call to embrace life, to cherish the love that surrounded him, and to pursue every opportunity to grow. Michael's heart swelled with gratitude as he glanced at his children, knowing they were all in this together, once broken, now hopeful. This is how love transforms. It lights the way through darkness, guiding you back home. And now, as you've followed this incredible journey, it's your turn. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for more heartfelt content. And please, comment your reactions and feelings about this transformation. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this message about love and renewal. Don't wait not even one more second. You're part of this journey, let us continue it together.